Hello and welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining me on another of my interview series. Today I'm going to talk to a gentleman called Darren Nesbit about the light. Now, you may know what I'm talking about, or you may be one of those many people who've never heard of the light. Now, I'm not talking about the light from up there or anything like that, but I'm talking about the newspaper, The Light. So let's bring him on. Darren, thank you very much for joining me today. I know your lighting, actually, for somebody who's talking about the light, it does look on my screen that you're a little in the dark, but don't let that worry us, because it's the newspaper, The Light, and what you and the team do that's really important. Because unlike mainstream newspapers, you've got a much less biased, shall we say, or a more truthful message than a lot of the nonsense that we're reading about in the dailies. Is that right?
Yes, thanks so much for inviting us on, Richard, to come and talk about the paper. Originally called a truth paper, and it's been going for 2.5 years now. And it's a great chance to introduce people who are obviously like yourself, possibly awake, newly awake, curious, or about to wake up, and help get that across, because it's pretty hard to directly, tell people what's going on. As you just mentioned, it's, you go into town, you go to friends, everybody thinks you're mad. But we came up with the idea of obviously of a newspaper, because the media aren't doing their job. So let's just do it for them.
Yeah.
And created a very, very, we think it's probably the best tool for helping wake people up. Because when you're like yourself, Rich, like you said you woke up a few months ago, quite publicly. So your channel is all about the truth and the information, because you want to share it. I think everybody gets into that, and the light is a really good way for people to do that really softly. They can just pop them in neighbours' homes, or they can hand them out on the street, or they can, you can't help being an evangelist. So it's another tool to keep in your pocket. You have a conversation with somebody, and instead of showing them something on the phone which they're going to be automatically skeptical of, they can take a newspaper away and check the sources out themselves.
There's something very visceral about a newspaper, isn't it? I mean, even though things can be in black and white, doesn't necessarily mean they're true, but there's something solid, and we've learnt to, I suppose, from early newspapers, believe what's written down. And there's something, again, about it's, I'm just trying to sort of think of the words here, but there's something about it being written down that says there's a lot of effort, and if it's been put in a newspaper, there's a lot of thought behind it. It isn't just something that's thrown up on the internet. So therefore, there's got to be something in there. And of course, as you say, it's another tool to get it together. Could you tell us who's behind it? How did it come about as a newspaper?
Kind of a crazy story, because it's so big now. A lot of people think it's just it's intelligence controlled or what have you. But in all honesty, it's always a case of by their fruit shall you know them. So look at the content that we do. Look at the stories that we have, the things that we'll cover. And ask yourself, do the rulers, the bankers, really want people knowing about all this stuff? Do they want to know? Do they want to know the truth about the climate crisis, the climate change? Do they want them to know the truth about how banking really works? What net zero is, all of that stuff. We cover it all. So in a roundabout way, the answer to your question is, it came about from we were organising coach trips to the big protest in London in 2020. So we had to crowdfund resources for that, and we ended up doing 3 coaches on the first trip. There it was a really popular thing.
Wow.
And then we started doing like 50,000, 100,000 flyers. The Coronavirus Act 2020, with Schedule 21. Allowed the police to come in your house and cart you off and inject you. That was on the statute books. I mean, and it's a grey area whether it's still on or not, because anyway. So we produced a lot of leaflets doing that, and we sent them around the country and crowdfunded that. So really, the light was almost a logical next step. There had been a paper in Ireland early, certainly a 2011 copy we saw, called the Sovereign either sovereign independent or sovereign citizen, and it was talking about Bill Gates and depopulation and all stuff, but even back then. So that was quite inspirational as well. But it really is just one guy. I mean, I woke up in 2013, so I've been awake for well over 10 years now. And people know me from, because at the end of that year, I wrote a now famous protest anthem called, it's called "We Are the 99%." But you may or may not have heard it. You can stick your New World Order and various other things up your arse. And that became a huge protest anthem in 2020. Not your bag then, Richard.
Well, I don't know. I feel that I am one of the 99% for sure, and they can certainly stick it right up where the sun don't shine, as opposed to the light, which does shine.
Good man. We started. I started it with a budget of £1,200 to get that first one out. Issue 1 was 20,000 copies. I mean, before that, we'd asked, look, if we did a truth newspaper, if we did the media's job for them and produced some kind of truth newspaper, what would you want to call it, and would you want to distribute it? And the overwhelming answer was obviously yes, and that still carries on today. We've printed 5.5 million copies so far of 31 issues.
Wow.
And still going strong. Every month it's growing and growing and growing. More and more people are now, in fact, they're all pre-ordered as well. So what people generally do is local groups. So you've got to stand in the parks or your local action groups, etc. People club together a lot and get however many, a few hundred, a few thousand papers. Some people are they travel the country doing it. They go from town to town doing outreach, because Richard, the name of the game here is because it's like, okay, what's going on? Let's you wake up to that. What do we do about it? Well, some people think we need to sharpen sticks and all go down Westminster. Some people think we need to form a big political party. Some people think we need to take them on in the courts. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that none of the solutions will work until enough people know what's going on.
Yes.
So the name of the game is information. It's information war, because people behave on what they believe. A few months ago, you were a different person. You behaved a certain way. You're changing your life now automatically because you don't want to be a part of the system and be a problem and feed it, and also be the example to other people. So all we really need is everybody to know, and everybody will just go, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll leave my smartphone at home, or I'll always use cash, and I'll stop working for this terrible corporation or this health service or whatever it is. Everybody will change their lives in their own way, and that's and it's done. There doesn't need to be, I don't think, a great big. You've got to be skeptical of all revolutions. I know we're going well off the light paper, but every revolution in history, the big ones, the French and the Russian Revolution, are known to be done by the Bavarian Illuminati, and then obviously in more modern times it was the Wall Street bankers who also backed Hitler, who also backed etc. This is it's Anthony Cecil, so it's all historical stuff. So coming back down to it, if you know exactly what's going on, if you know there's a deception there, why there's a deception, you have huge power in your own life, and that's where you can make the change.
So where do you get your information from? What's the sort of sources? How do we know that we can trust what's printed in the written word?
In all honesty, we don't actually ask people to say, hey, everything we print is absolute truth, trust it, etc. We say, be as skeptical as we are. Please be as skeptical with the mainstream media as you might be with the light paper. But at the end of every article are links and resources for people to go and check out. Now, the writers that contribute to the paper are often doctors, and they're often very well credentialed, and at the end of the day, it's up to people themselves to verify information for themselves, because this is a big part of the waking up thing as well. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust me. Don't trust you. Don't trust
exactly, absolutely. People have got to go and look for themselves.
Exactly. So, but here's the other side of that. Out of 31 issues, and if there's 1,000 stories in our paper so far, not a single one have we been have been taken to court for or been shouted down as that's completely wrong, because the ultimate source of the information from where the writers are getting them from is always official statistics. It's the official, the Office of National Statistics, the Public Health England. Obviously, that's on that side. It's the reason we know about Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, the climate, and all the green agenda thing, and we know it's not what it says it is because they've openly stated it. They've stated it in documents. It's been recorded.
It's all in plain sight, as everybody tells us. It's always all in plain sight.
Exactly.
So now is it a free paper?
It is free to the reader.
Right. Okay.
Although we are, someone is, and again, it's in the nature of the business that it's completely fluid. So somebody's come along and said, "I want this to get into shops." So they are talking to the shops and the distributors, to put a price and a barcode on one version of it. But we will always have a free version available for activists to order. Obviously, it's like 10p a copy, basically.
Yeah.
So you pay for it, but then you can obviously you give it to free. You can leave out takeaways and businesses and what have you. You can drop it in neighbours. A lot of people take it to local meetings. They go to town outreach, etc., etc. So it was most important to us to make it free.
So it's accessible, yeah,
exactly, completely accessible, because the number one mission is to get the truth out there.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, I can understand that. So there's a newspaper version, which is very great if you're you're sitting in a Sunday afternoon and you want to sort of kick back and read something and not always have your phone or gadget or whatever, or you're commuting, in the old-fashioned way, and presumably there's an online version as well, which is available on all the different gadgets that we have these days.
Yeah, all the PDFs are available on the website, thelightpaper.co.uk. There are downloads on there, various things, all the centre spreads that we do every month. The centre is a poster of one kind or another. Sometimes it's on prepping, sometimes it's on. We've had all sorts of really great stuff. On there, you can also order and subscribe. And also, I've said it from the start, the Light Paper is by the people for the people. So as long as people want to distribute it, it will always continue. But also, anybody can contribute.
Right, I was going to ask you about that, actually. Yeah, how open are you to contributions? Well, you've just said that, of course. So what criteria type of stuff do you have to if say, for example, I thought, I've got an article I want to, would you just submit it and say, would this be acceptable for the paper?
I lost you.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I was just saying, if I was, say, wanting to write an article and I felt passionate about something and I wrote my article, you'd just submit it in the normal way, presumably, and then you'd be able to say, no, Richard, that's a load of rubbish, we don't believe that anymore. Or you might say, that's the best thing since sliced bread, golly, we'll put that on the back at the bottom somewhere out the way. Or you know what I mean. So in other words, you'd be submitting it, and then you'd judge whether it was of the right standard to go in the paper, and if it needed help, presumably you could help. Because not everyone's got a brilliant control of English, but they might be very passionate about or knowledgeable about a certain subject.
If it's true, if it's relevant,
yes.
So it doesn't have to be current or up to date, but it could be relevant. So it could be something from 70 years ago or 100 years ago or something. We had a piece about nuclear weapons, obviously involved Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But as long as it's relevant to the situation, it helps if it's well written. We can't basic English and grammar and what have you. There's a certain standard, obviously. And the thing is that the further we've gone on, the longer we've gone on, because I didn't know whether it was going to go past one issue or a few issues, and like I say, here we are now 30, and we're working on issue 32 now. So yeah, it's open. It's as long as it's verifiable, and it's also, if it's covered in the mainstream, we don't need to cover it. There are also, if you notice, truth releases, controlled releases. A lot of it's coming, from the scandemic of the last few years, and they're starting to. Slow release information, but you'll notice as well, it's not in the public. It's not on the 6 o'clock news every night. When they lied and they did it and all the rest of it. That's not happening. It's very, very slow. So that I think what they're doing there is they're going to hang some politicians out to dry, Boris Johnson and Hancock and blah, blah, blah. They say, well, we need to take these decisions for really important pandemics out of the hands of these national governments and these, these corrupt politicians, and put it in the hands of the WHO. There's always an agenda. There's always a play. If it's on the mainstream media, there's normally always, a reason for it, even if it's like, it's like, hey, hooray, it's the truth. Even if it's just a pressure release valve, to be honest,
Oh, I see. So is there an audio version of the light for the blind and people like that and visually impaired?
If somebody wants to do it, then, again, like I say, somebody suggested a Spanish language version. There is the Irish light paper, by the way, and there's the Light Australia now. I'm not building a media empire here.
No, but I mean, as you say, so if somebody said, "Look, I really love it, but I've got this community who are blind," and then that could go across the world. If there was a small group of people who are prepared to read the articles like a podcast and then release it under your banner, and it was all acceptable, then it's about getting the truth out. Is what I'm gleaning from you.
Completely.
And however you do that is the most important thing. Tell me about some of the things that you get up to, like campaigns and things, because I've noticed that there's certain issues that are very important, messages that a number of YouTubers and other video platform content creators are doing. Oh, here we go. Say no to CBDCs. Well, I would certainly agree with you there.
These are brilliant, Richard. We printed 100,000 of them. I'm hoping that people are putting orders in the papers for a whole load more of them. We started a campaign called cashisfreedom.uk. We have hired the M5, M6 billboard. I don't know if you go up past the Midlands much.
Gosh.
Outside Walsall from April 3rd. So from next week for 2 weeks, it'll be on rotation. You'll see big red eyes and that kind of thing. And also we had a bunch of these printed. These are great. This is one of the best marketing tools I've ever seen. Sorry.
Yeah, there we go.
It's backwards. So you fold it over, it looks like a 20, leave it anywhere you like, leave it in shops, but anywhere indoors, obviously you don't want it to blow away.
And someone's going to pick it up, aren't they?
That's what you'll see.
Yeah.
So,
that's it. Someone will go, oh, there's 20 quid down there. There's 20 quid. Oh, just wait till no one's looking. Got it. What?
And then what the hell is CBDC? Because most people, again, don't know. Yeah. We do our online thing. We talk on. We do social media. We do the YouTube. We do podcasts, etc. And we've got a decent audience, but we'll never ever forget that we are talking to people who are we're already aware.
This is the problem. I mean, the same thing I think with a lot of YouTubers. That once you've sort of gathered your audience and you're talking to them, you're aware you're talking to the converted, and a lot of what I try to do is, as well as keeping my audience that you obviously want to do, and then inform them as stuff comes in, because people are sending me emails all the time with information, as I'm sure it happens to you. But you also got to somehow attract new people who have yet to wake up or are just curious about it all, and not sort of frighten them or offend them or scare them off by having something too hard, which is a very difficult balance to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I really spend a lot of time with the front cover of the paper, and funnily enough, some people love the really hard-hitting headlines, like issue 20 and 24 and 27, like what on earth what on earth is in these injections, and some people prefer the softly, and have the more hard information inside. So. Look, we balance it up. We try to do both, but we honestly I think Brian Garish from UK Column is right. We do things in a measured way. We don't give them all the information at once. Do it with humour. I mean, Rich, so far I've seen you come up with some nice creative ways of getting that information, the rumour mill, stuff, that kind of thing. JP Sears does the same thing, to get past the censor and what have you. And it does cross over. So, and you never know. I mean, you never know who you're going to reach, But I'm sure you've already got emails saying, thanks so much for sharing some truth and helping wake my husband up or whatever it was. You know what I mean? And that tells you you're on the right track. But not everybody wants to get on camera. Not everybody wants to write for a newspaper. Not everybody wants to, necessarily go and do whole tours from town to town. But if you've got the means and the time to do it, and you're awake, then grab a bunch of light papers and get going. Go meet people.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, I go back to that whole thing that the reality of a newspaper. There's something credible about it, because anybody can put anything online and it can seem credible. Anybody can make a video with their phone and all the rest of it, and it's just a talking head. I think there comes quite a responsibility when you print something, even though anybody in theory could do it, but there is that sort of sense that what you're now reading is a legitimate thing, which is, again, if you're competing with the mainstream newspapers up and down that people pick up off the newsstands, and yours looks and feels the same as them, then the news that you're telling them should at least have the same, if not a higher quality of truth, it should have the same acceptability to the audience. They'll sort of go, oh, okay, now this story looks a lot more how I was thinking, because I was wondering what's in those damn vaccines, and this one's just saying safe and effective, nothing to see here. And I think that's something that a lot of people like myself who are just online can't necessarily get across, that we can be as authentic as possible. But when it's in a printed newspaper, I think there's just something that makes it legitimate. And I don't know why that should be, but it just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we take great responsibility with that as well, because so far we built up that reputation as well, for within the community, if you like, across the country with the rape activists. We're clearly on the right mission, if you like. We don't not cover certain topics or skew certain topics or anything else. I want the truth out. I want people to live their best lives. We don't need to live like this. We don't need to be scared. We don't need to be demoralized. You can develop your potential at any age, from any, whether you're 10 years old or 80 years old, you know what I mean? If you're aware, whatever. We want people to be free. And that's why, on Wikipedia we're called right-wing, anti-Semitic, fascists, etc., etc. It's the only way they have of trying to put people, put people off seeing the truth, because their whole thing is absolutely dependent on there being a deception, on keeping that deception going. So everything that we can do to expose it, but it's the fact that the paper is offline. Yeah, you can give it to somebody and you can't be censored from doing that.
Exactly. That was another point, that it's printed. It can't be censored, and it's sort of the oldest form of media, isn't it? A broadsheet that you hand around. Even at the old executions, people were handing out these sort of broadsheets and things back in the day, and reading about reading the confessions of the criminal being about to be hanged, even though he is yet to be hanged. It's like, oh yeah. But it's something that, you can't shut it down once it's out there as printed, and that's a really good, strong element. And also, if all electricity fails and everything else, and you've just got a candlelight and your newspaper,
it's a great record as well. What we started noticing is people ordering all of the back issues.
Right.
And they're still ordering them, like they're still coming across the paper and going, I want all the back issues. Because again, it's not just uncensorable. You can't then go back in and change it like they are doing, clearly with the internet and archives and what have you as well.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I think about as well, and writers should also think about is, because it's not a daily, we're not trying to get the latest exclusive news out, and you don't need to, because the news cycle is set up so that it's bam, 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 information everywhere. And if you switched it all off, if we all switched everything off and just lived locally and got on with our lives, you know what I mean? We wouldn't pay any attention. None of it would have any effect whatsoever.
No.
We know, unfortunately, that's not going to happen, because people are addicted to their screens, whether it be a screen in their hand or the big screen. And they it's almost like there's a great big funnel or tube that they get their information from, and outside of that, even though there's a lot of information to person, a lot of independent people just trying to share the truth, they won't look outside of that. So again, like I say, that's why I think we've created such a really good tool to be able to use. If you do have a chance conversation on a bus or in a supermarket, and you've got a couple of papers in your bag, you can hand them on for further reading. You can't. Obviously, you can't really do that with a link or what have you. So it fulfills lots of different functions. We want people to obviously get involved. We're doing 150,000 copies a month at the moment. We'd love to see it, rise up to 200, 250, 300,000. We know that the more copies are going out there, the more people are waking up, the more people want to get involved, the more people want other people to wake up. Because like I say, I do end up repeating myself a fair bit, but the game is over when the war of information is won. If people know what me and you know, and most of your audience know, and our friends and what have you, then it's like I say, you change your life accordingly. You stop feeding the system in both energy and money, and you change your life accordingly. And obviously you can't do it instantly,
No.
But that is where the game is won. And here's the other thing, and some of your recent guests have talked about it, William Keat and various of the other guys, is we have the law to do this. The law of the land states that nobody can mess with you. Not a police, not a government, not a king. Nobody can say, you've got to do this. You've got to pay me this money. You can't do this. Yeah, if it's not causing anybody harm or loss. And obviously we know the whole system is cut. But again, if everybody is saying no, if everybody's doing it, it's game over.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, the solution is so simple. It's just convincing people that the simplicity of it is actually a fact. Because it's like most things you go out and you just watch the sunrise, and it's so beautiful, and it's free, and it happens every day, and and it's slight variance because of the weather and the time of year and all of that and where you see it, and it's just beauty, and it's available, and it's just awe-inspiring. And yet people will find themselves looking for beauty in more complicated ways. And it's that same thing that the truth is actually quite simple, but people want for some reason we just complicate everything, don't we? As humans, we just sort of make things much more tricky and difficult for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also been conditioned as well, don't we?
I know, yeah, exactly. And we seem to accept it. Someone says, look, you could just go in this straight line and get to your destination, or you could go down this horrible snaky drive. Oh, yeah, no, I'll just go down the more complicated routes. Like, no, just go down the straight line. It's so much easier. Get on with it. Can we just have a look at this is I think is this the latest issue that you've got? I'm going to put it up here. What have we got in the issue 31 to attract people to go and check it all out? You've got here the agenda of lies.
Yeah, so we're looking at. I mean, obviously, that's a general piece on some aspects of the deception, including obviously the climate change, pandemics, etc., etc. There's because local councils are now starting to implement a lot of these. Agenda 2030 policies, restricting movement, restricting transport, and we know it's always incrementalist as well. And people are starting to really fight back. So we want to.
It's great to see that.
Encourage people to get together and lobby the councils and say they're not having it.
Yeah,
it's part of saying you can't. See, the thing is, part of saying no is you have to actually actively say no.
Yes, you can't just say it in your mind, can you?
Yeah, you have to let the people know who think they have power over you that they don't have power over you, and we're saying no, and if what have you, and if everybody's saying no, they just can't go ahead with it. That is a wonderful piece. Part 2 is coming next month. It's actually from a Twitter thread, but it tells you exactly how they changed the medical cause of death certificates so they could put anything down as COVID-19, and it was done in 2016.
Wow.
That's from inside the NHS, somebody who worked there, and he lays it all out. And again, there's references and links. So, we get called, you get called conspiracy theorists and all the labels.
Yes.
You get called. I mean, we're not the first people to get labeled like this, but anybody who tries to share the truth will always be smeared. And like I said, because they have to keep the deception going. So what we want is people to think for themselves, to take take their own lives into their own hands, take responsibility for what they think, what they believe, examine it all again. Because if you're aware that one little thing, if you're aware that the I don't know what to call it, but without getting you
the old terms and conditions.
The thingy that happened recently over the last few years that traumatized the hell out of everybody, and they're still
Well, it's one of those things that's sort of growing and growing and growing, isn't it? And the thing about that is that I never quite understand this. The truth will out because you can't hide the bodies. And even though you've got the situation where you've got Parliament sitting there and you've got Andrew Bridgen standing up and everybody runs because he's mentioning the elephant in the room, the elephant is getting so big there will be no room for anybody else to sit in that House of Commons. and you just think at some point the rest of the world know what's going on, and the mainstream media and government will look so ridiculous that they're going, no, it's nothing to see. It's like you're the only ones who are blind.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's gaslighting to its ultimate extreme. No, absolutely no. I mean, the thing is that we need to remember is that the real owners, the real rulers, the real culprits, the whatever you want to call it, want the end of national governments. They want everything to collapse. They want society to collapse. Like they call us the terrible anarchists who want chaos. We want chaos. No, we don't. We want everything to be really down, go back to how it was, and all the rest of it. So sorry.
Yeah.
Where was he up to?
They want to get rid of all the national governments and have one, basically a global
governance.
Global governance.
So these local mayors, that's why they're giving them power now, and they're making them.
But what they don't seem to get, and this is what really freaks me a bit, is the fact that, as you say, they want this global government. So everyone's sort of going, oh yeah, we'll help you do that, but actually they're helping themselves out of a job. Because once you've got that global government, they say, well, we don't need you. Bye. Thanks very much for helping us to get into this power, but we don't really need you. You're now just a sort of minor little job just to make sure everybody actually obeys what we say. So if there's another pandemic and we say this is the response you've got to have, never mind that you're in this hemisphere of the globe or that hemisphere of the globe, or your DNA doesn't work with this remedy and your DNA is different to these people, however it is, it's one size fits all, it's our size fits yours, so get on with it. And you just think, hang on a minute, all these people are helping that situation to occur. It's like, you want them to wake up as well. I mean, obviously you need to be getting the light to every member of Parliament. Do you send it out? Do you send it out to members of Parliament? Do you send it out to the government? Do they go, oh my God, I can't hold this. It's like kryptonite.
I certainly deliver it to any local constituency office, and I know people do, but it costs £1,000 a month to put it into every So I'd rather break up ordinary people.
But if people have read their issue, if they've read their issue, and you've got no friends and family initially, take it down to the blooming MP's office. Yes, take it or send it to as many of these officials, because I don't think they know what they're doing half the time.
Absolutely not. No, they have the same restricted information that the public does. In fact, it's worse because they will get intelligence briefings. So we've got the secret briefing that nobody else gets, and all that stuff. It's just as easy to fool MPs as it is to compartmentalize NASA and you name it. Everybody. The human mind is brilliant because it's incredibly imaginative. We're little gods. We're made in the image of God, but it means we're completely and utterly malleable. So you can tell little kids anything you want. You raise them up like that. The news backs it up. The media, your Hollywood films back it up. Your books back it up. Your textbooks back it up. Everybody's saying the same story, so it must be true. But in that way, if you control all of that, you can you can create a complete fantasy, a complete non-reality that people believe in, and it goes on and on. The deceptions don't stop. But at some point, we have to stop. Digging, all the time and discussing it, and like I say, getting on with sharing the basic information that the government doesn't work for you. Your vote is worthless. You have no say whatsoever in what goes on at the moment. But you do have incredible power in your own life to say no. And when we combine that, 10,000 people in a local area, 5,000 people, depends how big your local area is. It's incredibly powerful. They can't do anything. They can't do anything about it, and it's that simple. It really
And
is.
we are seeing that with the pushback for the 15-minute cities. I mean, the boys and girls, I should say, in Thetford, who had a recent meeting with the town council, and the chap Chris who did the filming, and that went viral. And people are starting to realise, oh, actually, this we can make our voice heard, and we can just show them, actually, we don't want this. We're paying your wages. You're giving us something we never asked for. Do something about it, council, because this ain't happening. We ain't going to have it.
Yeah, it's in the next issue. The Thetford Town Council meeting.
Fantastic. Well, they've got a meeting. I think they've got a meeting tomorrow on the 30th with the council. So yeah, so
it's sold out. So hopefully we'll be able to update the article because we don't go to print for another week. But the idea is that to inspire people everywhere.
Absolutely.
A couple of hundred people turn up, and it's serious pressure on a small. This is not a big county council. Obviously, it's a smaller town council, but the town council then goes to the county council. This is how things happen. People, what have you. It can be done. I think part of the problem, Richard, is for the last 50 years, they've certainly since the end of the Second World War, they've completely made people, and quite easily, apathetic about politics, uninterested in politics.
Yes.
Because the big party politics is obviously a waste of time, it's full of lies and all the rest of it. So is every level of politics, but the point is that you can band together with 20 people locally and do something about, you go and lobby your council and join with more people and what have you as well. So, we do have the power. It's a reminder that we do have the power. Funny enough, when we started the light, when we started the light, obviously it was during lockdown, and quite a few people said, "Oh, will I get arrested for going out delivering it?" Now I was working for Royal Mail. When the lockdown started, I'd been working for Royal Mail, not as a postman, but as a van driver going from Manchester to Blackpool. And there was no road bar, no police anywhere. You could go wherever. If people had wanted to go out, wherever they want, well, obviously businesses decided to close, but if people had wanted to go out, they could have gone out.
Yeah.
But again, it's perception. Now we're in a relative peacetime, but they're not creating a WHO pandemic treaty for nothing. They're not creating online harms bills, i.e. online censorship bills, for nothing. They're not anti-protest bills. They're restricting everybody's freedom with this legislation. Now, all of it is void ab initio, which means it's illegal legislation, unlawful legislation. But just because it is, if you've got 1,000 police there,
absolutely.
They're going to carry out this unlawful legislation unless there's 10,000 of us standing there saying, no, you can't do that, by the way.
Yes.
And all the rest of it.
So I mean, what we have to, that's one of the reasons why I'm sort of banging on about common law, so that people do understand their sovereignty. They do understand that they got pushback, that they don't actually have to do these things. But on an individual basis, it's very hard, but you need lots and lots of individuals who are all saying the same thing. And then you've got a chance.
Yes.
And so that's how it goes. But listen, Darren, it's been really, really great to talk to you, and it's an absolute pleasure. I believe I'm talking to a colleague of yours in a week or so about journalism and stuff. Henry, talking to Henry, which will be fantastic. In the meantime, if people want to get hold of a copy of the paper or watch it online, what do they do?
Yeah, either or. You can subscribe for a real paper copy to come through your door every month, or go download the PDFs, which are available free online at thelightpaper.co.uk. You can also order bulk copies to distribute locally. You can also send in your contributions, what have you, and it's not just writing, artwork, photos, poetry. We've had poems. We used to have a crossword, but it really is an open source thing. The light paper is open source, so it means if you want to contribute, if you want to make it better, if you want to go in this direction, often the time it's hey, why don't you ever mention such and such a thing? It's like, well, okay, right, 800 words, Word doc format, send it in, and we'll get on with that for you.
Fantastic.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Richard. I really, really appreciate the chance to tell people about. I
think it's important. It's a very important message, Darren, and more people need to, all these areas where we can learn about the truth and what's going on from a whole variety of different people. Then we can make our own assessments of it and act accordingly. So I'll put the link in the description so people can immediately hop over there. and go and check it out. Darren, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
And
all the best.
hopefully talk to you again in the future. And
Yeah, let's do it again.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you will find all that information very useful. The Light newspaper. I don't know that I've had it initially shoved through my door by somebody who introduced me to it, but I think I need to get subscribed to it so I get it every week, and I can have a nice picture of me reclining on my chairs.
Oh yeah, we'll put that in the paper.
Yeah, read in the paper. Do join me again, ladies and gentlemen, on another interview coming up very soon. But from Darren and I, thank you very much and goodbye.